Hello preppers, I hope your prepping is going well. And of course, one of the main things that we need to prep for is medical, but not just medical, but preparing for bleeding and trauma. Now in future videos, I'll actually have like splinting and such like that. But today's video is practically about what supplies you'll need simply for bleeding management. Now, real quick, I do have a list, if you look in the description below, from our store on our website. You can actually buy this list. It's $2. It's not much money, but it helps our family out. If you want to buy it, you can. If not, don't worry about it though. We always try to make things as free as possible on the channel. I actually will list all the things on here as well, and you can just write it down if you want to do it that way too. It's up to you. But we'll have other further lists in the future, and more so, I'll actually show how to use some of the stuff we're going to talk about on this particular video. Because there's some things that's probably going to be new to you, and don't stress about it. Just right now, get the list, get some of the items. I'll actually have links for all these in the description below as well, so you can click on it and buy these things. But then again, stock up on them, and then in future videos, I'll teach you how to use them. Here's our quick disclaimer. I am a medical professional. However, I'm not licensed anymore. I don't practice medicine. So therefore, apparently, according to the government, you can't listen to me. So I don't care. But I'm still gonna give you this information, but there's no liability. So buy the stuff if you want to. If not, then that's fine also. All right, I have a big box full of stuff here. And the first thing listed is assorted bandages, Band-Aids, you know, that type of thing. I don't have any in front of me. There's none in this box. We actually keep multiple smaller first aid kits around the house. I have actual personal medical kit, medical bag that I have, plus we have them in the cars and stuff. In the bathroom, we have Band-Aids. This big box here is really about grabbing it in case there's some kind of like bleeding trauma. It has everything that we may have to grab if we're in a pinch. Now in here, I have listed gauze pads, 2x2s, 3x3s, or 4x4s. In fact, if you're really stretched for money, don't worry about buying 2x2s, 3x3s, and 4x4s. I wouldn't do that at all. I would actually just buy probably just the 4x4s. But let's see. Here's some gauze pads for you right here. A nice giant mega pack. And what I do is I buy them by bulk. In fact, I think all of these are just 2x2s. Yeah, that's what it is. These are just the 2x2s I have. I buy them in bulk so I can put them in the different kits. And again, if you go with any of them, just go with a 4x4 and buy it more in bulk. It's going to be far cheaper that way. And that way you can disperse it to the different medical kits you might have. All right, I'm sure I'll come across more of the 4x4s and stuff in here, but here's the 2x2 pack I have. Gauze rolls, 3-inch, 4-inch gauze rolls. I have a ridiculous amount. These ones are 4.5-inch gauze rolls. I actually got these at a yard sale, a huge box full for next to nothing. And that's what I recommend. Find stuff on clearance, find stuff at yard sales, obviously that's not been opened, that's really weird, or buy it in bulk. Try to save as much money as possible. But here is another pack of gauze rolls. This is one that is not, these are actually cotton gauze rolls, cool. These ones are not individually wrapped, but since I keep it in the bag, it keeps them nice and clean. Here's a nice little 2-inch one that you can use. And obviously we have lots and lots and lots of gauze rolls. I mean, because you have gauze pads, which are great for putting on cuts, and the gauze rolls are great for wrapping around. And honestly, in reality, you'll probably use both. You know, put the gauze pad on and then wrap it with a gauze roll. Abdominal pads. Okay, now we're getting into some trauma. Let's see here. Here we go. So I already picked up an 8x10. We also have on the list 5x9s, but I always have a bunch of these on hand. Basically, all it is simply just one of these gauze pads, except big and thick. It really is for trauma. And again, I have listed 5x9s and 8x10s. I even actually have 12x30s, the multi-pads. But listen, if you're tight on cash, don't want to buy everything at once, it's fine. Just buy like maybe the 8x10s and buy like a bigger pack of them in bulk. It'll work much better that way for you. Yes, there's more 8x10s. Again, I have all of them in here. Here's some 6x6 3/4. That's not even on the list, but I have some. I probably found them on sale one day and I picked them up. All right, some more gauze rolls. All right, so here we go. This is a 5x9, little abdominal pad, little gauze pad. Here's a whole bunch of 8x10s. So you can see I've got tons of them in here. In fact, here we go. These are some other 5x9 overwraps. And these are great. I'm not gonna open it up. I would actually like to do that because I want to show you how they're used, but again, in future videos, I'll show you how to use this stuff. But you can take it and fold it and do whatever you want with it. It's not like you actually have to keep it in the shape that you actually get it with. All right, the next one I hope I can find in there. Actually, I can find this one. That's the multi-trauma dressings. Right here. Look at these babies. These are awesome. Multi-trauma dressings for first aid emergency use. Absolutely. 12x30. Now again, you don't have to simply go by 12 by 30, you know, although you may need it for that. That's why I buy big ones. But again, you can fold it and do whatever you need to with it. But I just buy these in bulk. I think I got like a pack of 6 of them on Amazon. You know, and you don't even have to buy them from Amazon. Don't even think that at all. You can buy them from wherever you need to. Go into a local medical supply store and see what kind of deal you can get. Sometimes you can actually buy a first aid kit, and it actually has a little bit of all these in there. You can simply just fill in the patches as you go. We're all about having what you need, but having what you need thrifty, you know what I'm saying? But having some multi-trauma dressings, really big dressings like this, can be life or death, because when it comes to blood, I mean, you could use a towel if you wanted to, but this is sterile, you know, but this is something you could use if you actually have like a major injury that you need to dress up. Non-stick bandages. Hopefully I can find these in here. Non-stick bandages, we used to call them Telfa pads. I think the original inventors of those called them Telfa pads. Honestly, I have some in here. I have a whole bunch in here. But basically it's like this. If you actually put a gauze pad on a cut, give it a couple days or whatever you want to do to change it, you take it off, there's a good chance it's going to rip a lot of the scab with it. These non-adherent Telfa pads that you put on are made so when the scab forms, it will not be form part of the scab. Or if you do take it off, it'll actually leave a small layer with the scab, and the whole rest of the dressing can actually come off. So again, links for all these below so you can see what I'm talking about. Feminine pads, I don't have any. I mean, I actually have them laying around the house. I've got lots of women folk in the house who use them, but I probably should have them in my kit, but I don't. But they actually work amazingly well. Hemostatic dressings. I definitely have this in here. So hemo means blood, stat or stasis means control, regulating, or stopping. So in this case, you know, we used to use all kinds of different type of quick clot powders and stuff. And even in the military, we're kind of going away from the powders instead of actually using dressings instead. In fact, home stuff, a lot of people use like black pepper, but I know cayenne pepper works well. You can always try that too. But this is literally it's like a piece of gauze. You know, look at this piece of gauze, but when you take it out, it actually has the chemicals on it. So when you put the gauze on, it helps stop the bleeding. So a little bit on the pricier side, having a couple of these things around is actually very, very important, especially when it comes to bleeding. You'll have a hard time stopping. But again, we'll talk about stages of bleeding, and we'll talk about some of the things you need to. And another thing you can look at with that are tourniquets. Now, I actually have tourniquets on one of the other lists because bleeding management, yeah, you're going to use a tourniquet for bleeding management, but you can use all kinds of things for a tourniquet. But I actually have some really nice tourniquet kits here that literally cinch on there to make it nice and tight. Not to mention you can twist it and it has places to write the time. It does this because if we're not talking about craps hitting the fan, but you put a tourniquet on someone's leg, there's only a certain amount of time. 2 to 4 hours, you have to get that thing off before you start talking about cellular damage. And I always talk about tourniquets should be the last resort. They should be the absolute last resort you're looking at, because there's an excellent chance that person's going to lose a limb. Furthermore, that especially when it comes to non-medical type people, they'll put a tourniquet on, and after a couple hours they're like, oh look, it looks good. Then they'll take the tourniquet off and boom, out comes the blood flushing right back out again. So having a tourniquet is good. I don't even need to look for this one. Israeli bandages, Israeli dressings. These things are awesome. And I actually have 2 sizes. I have, let's see, the 4-inch and 6 inches in here. And when we're talking about bleeding management, these are, nothing compares to them. They are simply amazing. And what I will do in the future, when I talk about blood management as far as how to do it, rather than just the checklist, I will pop one of these open and show you how it works. But I have 3-inch and 4-inch ones on there. As you can see, I bought multiple packs, so I have a bunch of these. Again, I keep in other places too. These are gold, period. I mean, obviously the IDF in Israel came up with these guys, and they work incredibly well. So pick 1 or 2 up. I mean, I always talk about practice with them. I wouldn't even practice with it if you can't afford a lot of them, but try to pick 1 or 2 up, and then I'll show you how to do it. And then maybe you can like just practice in your mind or something. But it's definitely something you want to add to your list of making sure you have something, or the Israeli bandages. We also have what people simply call now self-adhesive bandages. I mean, these are the bandages. These are actually like dressings as far as holding it on. But these bandages, or we used to call them Coban, but you know how they're like getting rid of like weird, you know, normal names like that and going with just like standard names. But you've probably seen this before. You've probably had this before if somebody's ever taken blood or maybe you've donated blood, and you put this on, and the stuff sticks to itself. And that's why it's called a self-adhering or self-adhesive bandages. I recommend to get some 2-inch ones and some 4-inch ones. Again, if you can't afford both, probably go to the 4-inch ones. In my opinion, it's always go a little bit better, a little bit bigger than the smaller. Let's see, I saw them in here. Some knuckle bandages. You've probably seen these before. In fact, I can pop this open. Yeah, not too easy. But it kind of looks like a big letter H. And you always look at these when you get a first aid kit and you're like, look at that weird Band-Aid. It's because it's actually made for a knuckle. So, because knuckles get skinned up. So having some knuckle bandages are good. Having some butterflies. Apparently my butterflies have flown away. They're in here somewhere. Using some type of butterflies to close up things are really good. Having some rolls of surgical tape would be good too. Again, instead of just dumping this whole box, I have this stuff in here. There's just so much stuff in here. Again, I feel if there's going to be like a major trauma and crap hits the fan and I have to practice without a license because there's no more doctors to go to, I'll probably just take this whole thing and dump it out and just grab whatever I need to, you know. But surgical tape, 1-inch surgical tape, works really well for holding things in place. Something else I like to look for either are eye pads, you know, basically just a white bandage little pad that goes over your eye in case your eye has a damage. We can all look like Carl from The Walking Dead walking around. I think, is it Carl? Is that the kid's name? But anyways, the eye pads are important because when it comes to eye injuries, you can actually make them a lot worse unless you can actually bandage it up. Xeroform Petroleum pads. There we go. We used to simply call these Vaseline gauze, but these are actually non-adhering protective dressings. They actually have a layer of Vaseline or petroleum jelly on them. They are sterile. This is a multiple pack. Let's see, there's 25 of them in here. They're 4x4s. And these are really good to make sure things don't stick. But if you actually have an area that's healing, they actually work much better in a lot of ways rather than simply just using just a regular thing, because this won't stick to it. And because it has a petroleum layer on it, it actually helps protect it. Other things too you might include, I always say EMT shears, but these are actually on the first list. We talked about that like a week or two ago. Having some nosebleed plugs. I mean, honestly, these work for other things too, because if you're talking about actually stuffing a dressing, or even using like some type of iodoform gauze. I don't have that on the list. That's stuff that's kind of hard to come by sometimes if you're not a medical professional. But having these for a nosebleed to actually absorb it. I've heard people say they use a tampon for a nosebleed. If you want that string hanging down, that's up to you. But anyway, I've got a lot of stuff in here. Just, I mean, a ridiculous amount of gauze pads. Here's something else I have too. These are pretty neat. Swat-T's tourniquets. These are a different kind of tourniquets. Personally, the reason I wasn't going to mention this, I prefer these ones. But these tourniquets actually are kind of like, it's almost like kind of like a big elastic band that you can actually use, and it sticks to itself. They're really neat. They do work. I'm not going to say they don't. But these ones, in my opinion, are much better. I'll tell you what, so I'll go ahead and put this in the description below too, as far as a link for it. But this is the tourniquet I would recommend. All right, we're going to go through a lot of this stuff, talking about how to use it, especially the Israeli dressings. But at the very least, I would look at some of the things in the description below, click on the links at least just to see what's there. If you want to buy some, I simply put sometimes more of the bulk stuff, you know, you're buying a pack of like 10 or 20, like, or in this case, 25, because it's amazing when you talk about as far as price differences. If you buy one that's like 5, it'll be like $5. But if you go to 25, it's like $8. It's really amazing how much in medical supplies you can get a lot more when it comes to buying bulk. So that's what I always do. But again, don't think you have to buy any of that stuff at all. This is just my recommendations. And of course, there's other channels that have recommendations too. And again, in the future videos, we'll talk about airway management, sprains, fractures, medications. We'll talk about chest seals. We'll talk about all those fun things, providing people want to watch them. People stop watching them, I'm not going to waste my time. But I will at least put some of the bleeding management ones on there, and we'll kind of see how it goes from there. This tub, this is just for bleeding management. I have tubs and tubs and tubs full of medical supplies for emergencies, for when crap hits the fan, or stuff that was left over from when I used to practice. Okay, in the description below, you can see the links for all these things. We thank you for watching. And again, if you want to pick up this list, again, it's only $2. There's other stuff on there too. It helps out our family, but again, you're not obligated whatsoever, but you can see the link description below. Click on that one too to go to our store and pick that up. Okay, I don't think that's anything else, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.